Thanks for joining us on the Cultured Meat and Future Food Show. We're excited to have Dr. Yuki Hanyu as the guest for today's episode. The Cultured Meat Symposium is a 2-day event taking place in downtown San Francisco on November 14th and 15th. Early bird tickets are available until July 31st. Register at www.cms19.com. Last week, the industry came together at the New Harvest Conference at the MIT Media Lab in Cambridge, Massachusetts. New Harvest, a nonprofit organization that's advancing cellular agriculture, is currently hiring a program manager in the Boston area. Visit www.new-harvest.org for additional information. Yuki Hanyu got his Ph.D. in chemistry from Oxford University in 2010. After working as a research scientist in Tohoku University and Toshiba Research and Development Center, he founded the Shojinmeat Project, the world's first citizen science community for DIY open-sourced cell-based meat. Based on the low-cost cell culture technology developed at the Shojinmeat Project, he founded IntegriCulture Inc. in 2015 to commercialize cell-based meat. The company develops the general-purpose large-scale cell culture system, the CulNet System, to scale and commercialize cell-based meat products such as cosmetics, foie gras, and meat, while the Shojinmeat Project develops DIY cell-based meat and engages in public communications through art and doujin projects. Yuki aims to build lunar and Martian cell-cultured food production facilities, you heard that right, to support thousands of colonists on the moon or Mars in the future, and to develop technologies that anyone can design and make cell-based meat for fun. Yuki, I'm excited to welcome you to the Cultured Meat and Future Food Show.
Thank you very much for having me. I've been doing the DIY cultured meat and the startup and all those things since 2014. And right now we are developing our first product, which is the food-grade culture medium that anyone can use. And also we developed the bioreactor system to basically make cultured serum. And that's where I am at the moment.
Yuki, tell us a little bit about your background. What was the focus of your academic studies, and when did you first hear about cultured meat?
So my background is in chemistry, more on organic and biological side, and I've been sort of familiar with the idea of cultured meat since when I was 5 or 6 from various works of science fiction and anime and manga and those things, and that idea has been hanging around for the rest of my life, but it was only in 2014 when I picked cultured meat out of other options like spaceships and Mars colony and stuff like that.
When we're talking about Mars or when we're talking about space travel, why is cultured meat so important?
Basically, it's the protein source, but if you are living in space, and especially in the early days, astronauts, they're kind of like military personnel. So if they are asked to or commanded to orders to eat something, they will probably eat. But when it comes to Mars colony and stuff like that, normal people be living there in the number of thousands, and probably taking amino acid tablets or eating only raw algae, those things won't be sustainable from psychological and sociological point of view. And that's I think where cultured meat will be needed, or better say meat will be needed. But at the same time, it's not very practical to do all the animal raising and slaughter and all those things on Mars or in a spaceship. So basically, cultured meat it's ecological. It has got a small footprint, but if you push that to extreme, that is basically production of meat using minimal resources, and which is basically fit for space applications.
Yeah, it makes me think of the space ice cream that they used to have that actually doesn't taste good at all, but when I was a kid, I always wanted it. So, and I can't imagine that we'll just be consuming things like Soylent all the time if we're over there. But yeah, and imagining all the amount of resources that it takes to raise a cow is not something we're going to be doing on Mars. So tell me about the Shojinmeat Project. And we've been seeing a lot of I guess, different artwork and different projects come out of the Shojinmeat Project promoting cellular agriculture technology and really getting people of all ages excited about cellular agriculture. So tell us a little bit about what Shojinmeat Project is and how the community is structured.
So, Shojinmeat Project is a citizen science community, and originally I started it because when I looked at the technological hurdles that cultured meat requires, it's basically a lot is about getting down the cost, and which means if I am to launch a startup or do anything, the R&D cost must come down first. So that that actually goes perfectly aligns with the purpose of DIY bio of doing everything cheap. So I thought like DIY bio, biohacking, those things are completely in line with what is needed for cultured meat. So I basically took the whole methodology. Like the idea was also borrowed from all the like Fab Cafe and Maker movement and stuff like that. And in that context, later what I found out is that if I am to start with a startup or for-profit organization from the head start, I can actually reach only a limited segment of the society, which is basically the business and investors and those people, and not like kids or retired people or people living outside the so-called like business or capitalism or those things. And also, that's quite important in the amount of dialogues and the social understandings that are needed for the entire idea of cellular agriculture, not just cultured meat. And that's how like Shojinmeat started and sort of grew into. And right now, Shojinmeat Project doesn't have any definition for membership, so people just come join and do something whatever they like. And it's turning out to be more like an movement than like structured organization.
In what year did you start the Shojinmeat Project?
It started in 2014.
You know, we're talking about getting young people involved. Is that because you see cellular agriculture or cultured meat as something that really requires a long-term scope of things, maybe 10 or 20 years out? What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely it will take more than 10 years and probably like, 20 years until we have some like significant real impact rather than just media hype. It's after all, it's the current young people who will be eating those things. And at the same time, another one of my motivations was to make everything like fun, which is what like young people quite enthusiastic about, or even older people too. But yeah, and that's the sort of the direction I went. If I say it in like internet terms, that would be just for the lulz kind of thing.
You mentioned the term media hype. Would you say that a lot of the news articles about cultured meat kind of blow things out of proportion?
Well, some of them are. Actually, what I find out is that it's actually not that many media channels that blow things out of proportion. But what is kind of tricky is that because everything is turning into echo chamber right now, so that within the echo chamber I'm in, I'm finding like only few of those like overblown things, but I don't know about other echo chambers.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like the same here in San Francisco with kind of being in a bubble, whereas everyone just is talking about cultured meat, but maybe it is that echo chamber or bubble that we're in.
Hmm.
So going back to DIY cultured meat projects, for those who have just learned about cultured meat, or maybe even for those who have been researching tissue culture for many years, can you give us a quick rundown as to why it's important for us to play around with DIY cultured meat?
One of the biggest fears of cultured meat is that it's like unknown. People don't really know what it is, and is it safe, or raises all sorts of questions and skepticisms. But the way forward is not basically like arguing in confrontational manner, but basically, basically make it possible so that people can just try and see what it's actually like. And that doesn't mean everyone has to try. It could be like so-called like influencers and social networks could try. And ultimately, what we're thinking is that farmers should be taking advantage of cellular agriculture technology. And unfortunately, a lot of organizations, like active organizations in cellular agriculture field, their messages are like old animal agriculture is like dirty or evil, or we're going to disrupt, or those messages. But the messages we are sending out from Shojinmeat Project is that anyone can participate in this technology, including the existing farmers. So what if an existing farmer can like culture their own meat using the cows they have raised and launch a new product? That will be an opportunity for them as well. So it's more like an, I would say, like inclusive community structuring, or whatever you could say, that the Shojinmeat Project is aiming at.
I've had someone on the show before, and I asked them, what would it take at the most basic level, at minimum, to create a lab to produce cultured meat? And of course, they were thinking of a formal lab, and they gave me the number of like $20,000. But when we're talking about DIY cell culture, what would you say, would be the dollar amount of things that you need to put together actually growing cells, even if it's a tiny amount? And is that something that would be edible?
Yeah, if it's tiny amount and edible, I would say $40.
$40?
Yeah, $20 for $20 to $25 for reptile mat. So if anyone, for those who has got like lizards and those reptiles as pets,
right,
they have this heater mat, which will serve as a like incubator. And culture medium we can formulate from this like sports drink or mixture of like amino acids, supplements, tablets, those things. And cells, you can just use the fertilized egg and like and extract cells from there. And we've actually did a class to teach 20 high school students, and the whole budget was basically like 8,000 something hundred yen, so like $80.
Wow. Okay. So, but what would you say is the success rate of culturing cells in that environment?
Yeah, depends on depends on how clean you can design the environment. So if you thoroughly do the like 70% ethanol mist thing, and also wash your hands and make sure that the room is not too dirty, the success rate is like, I would say, well, 80-90%.
Okay.
And
wow. Yeah.
another important feature is having some like egg white in the culture medium, like mixed up like 5 to 10% volume ratio.
Right. That's probably the best growth factor, right?
It's not the growth factor; it's just the antimycotic.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And even at $40, like even if you had to redo that experiment 10 or even 100 times, it's still not that crazy of a number. So
Well, the $40 one, at least half of them is basically the heater mat, so you can use it over and over, which means
interesting. Okay.
initial investment 40 per experiment, 5 or 3, something like
that. Wow. Okay. And so, regulation is a big challenge for cell-cultured meat technology. How does the regulation look like for cell-cultured meat in Japan? And also, what is the public perception of cell-cultured meat in Japan?
Yeah. Well, for the idea of cell-cultured meat, it's the understanding is we're not finding that much problem with like making people understand. And the reason is there are 2 reasons. One is the idea has been around in many anime and manga and stuff from like ages ago, and another is it's just how the language works. So the same will be true for Chinese as well, and that is like in English, if you don't know the word, you don't know the word. But when Japanese or Chinese, even if you don't know the word, you can actually pick out the meaning from the Chinese characters, because each characters means something. So even if they don't understand, even if the word is new to them, they can actually understand what it actually is. So for these 2 reasons, the understanding is like fairly high, and the regulation things. under the condition that the cells are not genetically tampered and no alien substances like growth factors are being added, it can already be sold because it would fall into the same category as all the fermentation products in Japan.
I see. Okay. But if you are to kind of go into a large scale, then that does not fit the regulation, right?
It still fits.
Oh, it still fits. Wow. Okay.
The conditions are it's not using like immortalized cells and not using added growth factors.
Okay, interesting. And so we've been talking about a lot about anime and manga, and I just saw this article from CB Insights about a burger place that makes hamburgers that are shaped like Pikachu or a Pokemon. But at one of your talks, you talked about how theoretically we could develop a Pikachu meat. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So actually, there are two. When I talk about Pikachu meat, it has got two kinds of Pikachu meats. One is more realistic one. Another is more like the half joke one. And the one realistic one is about what we call designer meat, which is if we can design a chunk of meat, we can basically have fat tissues in the shape of Pikachu, and that's something that natural systems cannot do, and that's one. And the another is it basically talks about the gene edited or if I don't know if you've heard about the computer game called Spore, where you can design an organism or design a life.
Yeah.
And yeah, so basically the idea is take the DNA from some like rats and give that DNA like yellow pigment gene and also some like or electric gene from electric E or something. Then we can have a Pikachu, and if once we have that gene, then we can in the near future we can synthesize the entire DNA for this electric rat, which can be grown in Pikachu meat. But this one was speculative.
Right. And so in the next 10 years, or I should say maybe in the next 20 years, we could have some crazy stuff on the McDonald's menu.
Yeah. So it could be that the Pikachu-shaped fat meat or actual Pikachu meat.
Right.
But the foie is probably more acceptable.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to get shocked. So your work at IntegriCulture has received international attention, including highlights that you guys are working with. Is it JAXA? JAXA? Is that how you pronounce it?
The Japanese NASA.
Okay, yeah. And so tell us a little bit about IntegriCulture and your mission there.
Yeah. So the project with JAXA, it's actually officially it's a joint project between JAXA and Tokyo Women's Medical University, where we have like joint R&D contract with, and within this scheme of JAXA and Tokyo Women's Medical Uni research project, we have joined as a technical support and actual material support. And what's happening there is that we're developing an algae-based culture medium production system in a closed environment. So you can imagine that sort of like a photobioreactor in space containing algae and basically photosynthesizing biomass in space or on the moon, and then that synthesized sugar and amino acid can be converted into culture medium and that will be used to culture meat on Mars, Moon, or in space. And the waste culture medium will be fed back into algae photobioreactor.
Wow, interesting. Okay, and in addition to cultured meat, there's probably a lot of other applications for that when you're on the moon or in Mars, right?
Yeah.
For the listeners that are interested in getting into cellular agriculture and the cultured meat industry, what advice do you have for them? What are some ways that anyone could get involved regardless of their academic background?
I would say just start something. And something is basically, to be honest, I don't know what's going it's basically about what's going on in Shojinmeat Project, because some people are drawing things, some people are doing DIY experiments, some people are building some hardware, some people are going for like public communication stuff. So there are a lot of things that like people can join, and it's not like I don't have the skills. I have to do something. I don't know how to contribute. It's just about like going in, do something, and there will be people around like suggesting probably it's more effective to do this or do that. So I think it's the most important thing is just start.
The URL, I'll post it in the show notes, but it's just www.shojinmeat.com, and that's both in English and Japanese. So do you fear that the traditional meat industry might push back on cultured meat and maybe even limit the growth from a regulation standpoint, a technology standpoint, or maybe even a public perception standpoint?
Yeah, it will probably depend on countries, and also depends on the messages that cell agriculture side would send out. And from the country perspective, for countries like say like Singapore, they don't have a like that big existing meat industry. They all rely on import. So which means for countries like them, like pushback from the farmers, it's not a big issue, or it just doesn't exist. And in case of Japan, because a lot of farmers are getting like very old, like 60, 70 years of age, and they know that they have to do something, or they have to do something new, or they just retire. So again, there is existing meat industry, but they are also like keen to change. But for other countries where like sort of confrontations going, I think there will be like a lot of like lobbying and those things.
And would you say that a lot of the younger people in Japan are not pursuing farming at all?
I would say I think it's the true with like most countries that like younger people are not that keen on like traditional farming.
Yeah, I guess you see that definitely in the US as well. So here's a bonus question. If there was one district in Tokyo that would be the first to have cultured meat, or a cultured meat restaurant, which district would it be and why?
Which district? Haven't really thought about, because it's not really the district that matters. It's more about like what sort of audience or people would gather around that restaurant. I can get creative on that. Yeah, because if we are to go for like rich people, that would probably be Ginza or places like that. And if we go for like Shojinmeat Project direction, like for aiming for Generation Z, that would be like Akihabara or Harajuku or those places.
Okay, cool. Either super luxury or super trendy.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. You could learn more about Dr. Yuki Hanyu at www.integriculture.jp and the Shojinmeat Project at www.shojinmeat.com. Yuki, are there any last insights that you might have for our listeners today?
I would say, well, just give a try and make your own meat.
For only $40, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Yuki, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your insight on the Cultured Meat and Future Food Show.
Thank you very much.
This is your host, Alex, and we look forward to being with you on our next episode.